And in this episode of Death by China TV, we'll look at a nasty territorial dispute between China and Japan over 5 small islands in the East China Sea. This conflict is rapidly drawing U.S. military forces into its vortex, and it highlights the dangers we all face from a rapidly militarizing and increasingly aggressive China. So let's do the numbers on this. Japan calls them the Senkakus, China the Diaoyus, and they are located about 120 miles northeast of Taiwan. With less than 3 square miles of territory, these rocks in the sea would have little economic value, if not for passage of the 1986 Law of the Sea Treaty. It provides for exclusive economic zones that extend 200 nautical miles. And these zones convey all resource rights both beneath the sea, think fish here, and underneath the seabed, think oil and natural gas, which China particularly covets. Strategically, the Senkaku Islands also lay in the middle of an important gateway through which Chinese merchant and military ships must pass through to access the relatively deeper waters of the Pacific Ocean. And China also wants the islands as part of its broader string of pearls forward basing strategy. Across the East and South China Seas to the western end of the Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf, China is aggressively developing a network of military installations. And China has already perfected the art of building useful military garrisons on the islands and reefs that are far smaller than the Senkakus. Just consider Mischief Reef in the South China Sea. A bullying China took this reef by force from the Philippines in 1994. Not coincidentally, right after the U.S. Navy withdrew its forces from the Philippines. Tiny Mischief Reef is now home to a full-fledged military outpost built right on stilts, and its radar systems are capable of guiding cruise missiles aimed at Japan or Vietnam or American aircraft carriers in the Pacific. So, given these economic and strategic considerations, which country has the stronger territorial claim to the islands? Hands down, that would be Japan. China claims it discovered the islands centuries before Japan annexed them in 1895. True enough, but such historical claims are not generally recognized in modern international case law. In contrast, Japan meets every criterion of that law. It annexed the islands as terra nullius, territory belonging to nobody. Its citizens have conducted business on the islands under Japanese administrative and regulatory control. Japanese ships have regularly patrolled the islands, and Japan has enjoyed continuous control of the islands for more than 100 years. Unfortunately, China's relatively weaker legal hand makes it unlikely it will ever press a claim in the international courts, so that peaceful route for resolving this dispute is a dead end. Right now, war between China and Japan not only seems likely, it almost seems inevitable, given the arc of inexorable escalation that began in 1992. This is the fateful year China broke an unspoken truce by publishing a law specifically declaring the islands sovereign Chinese territory. Since that time, China has progressively escalated its military confrontations, and both its naval ships and heavily armed civilian vessels now regularly patrol the waters of the islands in clear breach of Japanese sovereignty. Of course, in the latest provocation, China has declared the Senkaku Islands airspace to be part of China's Air Defense Identification Zone. That the United States immediately defied this zone with a B-52 bomber flyover underscores the situation's seriousness. That China quickly responded with a flyover of its own fighter jets indicates the new belligerent attitude a rapidly militarizing China has been ready to display to enforce its revisionist territorial claims. Clearly, the days of China's so-called peaceful rise are over. So, will the sons and daughters of America be squaring off anytime soon with Chinese soldiers and sailors? The idea seems absurd on the face of it. But the problem here is that America is strongly committed by treaty to defend Japan in the event of an attack on any of its territory, including the Senkaku Islands. Said Secretary of State Hillary Clinton firmly in 2010, "The islands are part of our mutual treaty obligations." And current Secretary of State Chuck Hagel has reiterated this pledge several times as China has ratcheted up its pressure. The clear danger now is that some type of incident or accident may lead to a skirmish that, through a chain reaction, leads to a broader war. In one likely scenario, a Japanese Coast Guard ship and a China Marine surveillance vessel might collide. Both China and Japan might then scramble jet fighters and send military vessels to the area. Shots, missiles, or torpedoes may then be fired. Of course, once one ship or plane or life is lost by one country, the skirmish could quickly mushroom into a broader war that might easily drag the United States in. Think Sarajevo if you doubt this could happen. So, can anything be done now to stop this madness? For starters, Japan could adopt a policy of appeasement and simply turn the islands over to China. However, the growing power of nationalists within Japan makes that a non-starter. Alternatively, the U.S. could walk away from its commitments to Japan, but that would mean quite literally sailing away from Asia, as Japan would surely evict the U.S. military from its numerous bases, and America would no longer hold the trust of other key allies in the region like South Korea, India, Singapore, Vietnam, and the Philippines. That leaves any real solution up to China. Rationally, it seems to make little sense for it to risk its economic growth over a few small islands in the East China Sea. However, China's bullying bid for the Senkaku Islands is part of a much broader strategy. Its modern-day Communist Party emperors seek nothing less than to drive the U.S. military out of Asia, gain control of both the East and South China Seas, and then assert China's historical hegemony over a new Middle Kingdom that stretches from the Indian Ocean in the west to the Kurile Islands in the east. China's military ambitions are well worth remembering the next time you buy a product made in China, and thereby help finance the Chinese war machine. Well, that's it for this edition of Death by China TV. And for more Death by China news, visit our Facebook page or the Death by China movie webpage. Please note this too, if you are a Netflix subscriber, you can now view the Death by China film for free. Lastly, you may want to think about buying the Death by China DVD as a holiday gift for a friend or family member. All proceeds are dedicated to raising awareness about this critical issue, and the DVD is all made in America. So take care. I'm Peter Navarro, and I'll see you next time on Death by China TV.